The moment changed everything, not with noise or chaos, but with a single frozen second of breath. A tired man holding a broken mop handle, a glass wall that should have been tinted, and a woman whose world controlled half the skyline of the city, standing in the raw quiet of vulnerability. It was the kind of moment that no one prepares for, the kind that rearranges futures without warning. And it all started on the worst morning of his life. Before this story unfolds any further, take a second. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people finding hope when life seems unbearable, please like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this exist because of people like you. Daniel Reyes had been awake since 4 in the morning, listening to the radiator knock and the rain drag itself down the apartment windows. The electricity had gone out during the night, leaving the tiny one-bedroom apartment in the kind of gray darkness that made the walls feel closer and the ceiling heavier. His 7-year-old daughter Sophia slept curled beside him on the couch, her school uniform folded carefully on the chair, her sneakers cleaned and drying near the sink because he had stayed up scrubbing them by hand after she went to sleep. He watched her chest rise and fall and felt the ache in his ribs that always came when he realized how much he loved her and how terrified he was of failing her. The eviction notice was still taped to the fridge. He didn't need to read it anymore. He knew every word. By 6, he had dressed in his worn maintenance uniform, fixed Sophia's hair into a loose braid, packed her lunch from the last of the groceries, and walked her 3 blocks to school under a sky that looked like it had forgotten the sun existed. She hugged him longer than usual that morning, as if she sensed something in the air that he was trying to hide from her. He watched her disappear into the building, then turned toward the subway with a weight in his chest that felt like a stone. Daniel worked as a maintenance contractor in the Larkspur Tower, one of the tallest buildings in the city, owned by Maribel Grant, the youngest self-made billionaire on the East Coast. Her company dominated tech, logistics, and real estate. Her name appeared on magazine covers, financial news, charity galas, and business journals. To Daniel, she was just the invisible presence whose building he kept running while trying to keep his own life from falling apart. That morning, the elevator on the 32nd floor had flooded during the storm, and water had seeped into a hallway of executive offices. Daniel had been called in early to fix it. The hallway was silent, glass walls reflecting the pale gray of the rainy sky. He moved carefully, tools clinking in his bag, his thoughts stuck on the eviction deadline that was now only 5 days away. As he turned the corner, he noticed one office door standing open. The light was on. That was unusual. The executive wing was usually empty before 9. He stepped closer, intending to knock and inform whoever was inside that he needed access to the maintenance panel behind the wall, and that was when the world seemed to stop. The glass panel that normally darkened at the press of a button had malfunctioned. Inside the office, Maribel Grant stood near the window, her back turned, in the middle of changing. The rain streaked down the city behind her, the skyline blurred, and the powerful figure he had only ever seen in photos and headlines was suddenly human in a way no magazine had ever captured. Daniel froze. He didn't breathe. He didn't move. He stared for half a second too long, not out of anything inappropriate, but out of shock, confusion, and the absurdity of the moment. Then the glass flickered, and Maribel turned. Their eyes met. The silence was so loud it felt like pressure in his ears. Daniel dropped his gaze instantly, stammered an apology, and stepped backward so fast he nearly tripped over his toolbox. His heart hammered in his chest as he mumbled that he hadn't known anyone was there and that he would come back later. He turned and walked away, his face burning, every nerve in his body screaming at him to escape. He spent the rest of the morning working on the elevator with hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking. By noon, he was certain he would be fired. At 1:30, his supervisor called him into the administrative office. Daniel's stomach dropped. He imagined security escorts, termination forms, and the final thread of stability in his life snapping. But when he entered, the room was empty except for a tablet on the desk and a message waiting for him. Please report to the top floor conference room. M. Grant. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than any he had ever taken. His thoughts spun through apologies, explanations, desperation. He pictured Sophia's face and the eviction notice on the fridge and felt his throat tighten. The conference room overlooked the city like a throne room of glass and steel. Maribel Grant stood near the window, dressed now in her signature tailored suit, her hair pulled back with flawless precision. The woman who turned toward him was calm, composed, unreadable. Daniel stopped several feet from her, his voice barely steady as he apologized, again and again, explaining the broken glass panel, the emergency repair, how he had no intention of intruding, how he would accept any consequence. She listened in complete silence. Then she said something that he would remember for the rest of his life. She told him to sit. Daniel lowered himself into a chair, his hands folded tightly together. The room felt too large for the two of them. Maribel's gaze softened in a way that didn't match the reputation she carried. She said she had not called him there to punish him. She awed him because when she saw the way he reacted, the panic, the shame, the immediate respect, she realized he was not like most of the people who walked through those halls. She told him she had noticed his maintenance logs, his long hours, the fact that he always picked up extra shifts, that he had never once filed for overtime pay. Daniel didn't know what to say. She asked him why. The words spilled out before he could stop them. About Sophia, about the hospital bills from when her mother had passed, about the eviction notice, about how every shift was another day of shelter and food for his daughter, about how he was trying so hard to hold everything together and how sometimes he felt like the city itself was pressing down on him. Maribel did not interrupt. When he finished, the room felt different, quieter. He realized he was trembling. She told him that sometimes life crosses paths in the most unexpected ways, and that the morning's accident was not something he should carry as a burden. She said what mattered to her was the man he had shown himself to be when he thought no one important was watching. Then she stood and offered him a proposal that made the floor tilt under his feet. She told him she had a position opening in her facilities operations division, a salaried role, health benefits, stable hours. She told him she wanted him to take it. Daniel stared at her, convinced he had misheard. She explained that her company was investing in community focus, leadership, and that she needed people who understood responsibility the way he clearly did. She said she had started with nothing, too. She recognized the weight he carried. His voice broke when he tried to thank her. That afternoon, Daniel walked out of Larkspur Tower into a city that looked suddenly brighter, the rain easing, the clouds thinning. He didn't feel rich. He didn't feel lucky. He felt like someone had finally seen him. The next months unfolded like a slow miracle. Daniel's new job gave him evenings with Sophia. They cooked dinner together. They laughed more. The eviction notice came down. He saved enough to move them into a brighter apartment with windows that faced the park. Sophia started sleeping through the night again. Daniel started breathing again. And Maribel kept her word. She checked in on his progress. She introduced him to mentors. She encouraged him to take business courses through the company's education program. Daniel, who had once fixed leaking pipes, began managing entire teams. He worked harder than he ever had, not out of fear this time, but out of hope. Years passed. One autumn evening, Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the same city that had once crushed him. Sophia, now nearly a teenager, leaned against his side, talking excitedly about her science project. Inside, laughter filled the apartment. The table was set. The lights were warm. Their life was no longer fragile, and in the distance, the lights of Larkspur Tower glowed. H.E. thought of that moment in the hallway, of the glass wall, of the second that had changed everything. Not because of what he saw, but because of what followed. Because one woman chose understanding over judgment. Because one tired father kept showing up even when he had nothing left. Because sometimes the smallest moments carry the biggest futures. Before this story ends, if it touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Stories like this only matter if they remind us of the good still possible in the world. And please, right now, leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and tell us if you believe one moment can change a life. Daniel would tell you it can. And sometimes it does.